Now, how do we get the economy to grow? How do we get more money for roads and bridges and everything else that we have? First thing you have to fundamentally understand, and it's not as big a question here, I mean, there probably are things you want here too, but in northern Kentucky, there's a $2 billion bridge project. In Louisville, there's a $2 billion bridge project. Our road fund is $420 million a year. How are you going to get to $2 billion ever when you only bring in $420 million a year? Now, one, you could save some, which I think is probably a good idea to put some of that money aside each year into a bridges fund, but we have to look for other sources of revenue. We're spending more in our road fund now than comes in the taxes. I think you could actually reform the gas tax if it were part of some overall tax reform. But overall tax reform that'll get people like me to vote for it has to do something to stimulate the economy. Lower rates, get rid of deductions, simplify the tax code, and you'll get growth. And you might actually have some taxes that might go up in a package like that, and the gas tax might be one of those. Other ways to bring in revenue. I can give you $100 billion right offhand. $30 billion we spend on Department of Energy loans, going to companies. Large percentage of them have gone bankrupt. Large percentage of these solar panel companies are owned by millionaires and billionaires. So if we think they're, somehow the rich need to pay more of their fair share, why don't we quit giving the rich subsidies, So that's $30 billion right there. There's another $30 billion in foreign aid. We actually spent, in addition to the $30 billion in foreign aid, we spent another $7 billion building roads and bridges in Iraq and Afghanistan. We've got a lot of problems here at home, and the president actually gets the rhetoric of this right. He says, we need to do some nation building at home. I agree with him. The problem is he doesn't follow through with it. He's the biggest proponent of more foreign aid overseas. He's the biggest proponent of, he increased and escalated the Afghanistan war. So I think there are ways to save money. I think ending the two wars will save some money. I think slowing down or putting limits on our foreign aid would save quite a bit of money. There's another $30 billion sitting out there that could come through repatriation of capital. We have an income tax, a corporate income tax of 35%. Canada's is 15%. Brown-Forman in Louisville competes with Bacardi in Bermuda. They pay 9%. We're eventually going to lose all of our industry if we don't lower our tax rates. But there's one way to get corporations who have money overseas to bring it home, and that's to tax them at a lower rate. We've done it once. We did a one-year holiday at 5%, brought in about $30 billion. You could bring in money by doing things like this, and interestingly, some Republicans and Democrats agree on some of these issues. But you know what the problem is? When I go and talk to a Democrat senator on the other side who's, I think, reasonable and will agree to some pro-business policies, they look at me and say, well, yeah, we do agree on that, but that's the sweetener that we're saving for overall tax reform. I say, well, I've been here 2 years, and so far we haven't done anything. We haven't agreed on anything, and all the little things we agreed to, we never pass. So I'm a big believer in breaking things up into smaller pieces. This goes back a long time. When Henry Clay passes the Great Compromise in 1850, he couldn't pass it all as one package, so he broke it up into smaller packages. It's what we need to do now. Immigration reform. There are many Republicans, myself included, who are for some immigration reform, figuring out how to normalize the people who are here. I don't think shipping them home is an answer. I think they're getting that the people who want to ship them home are Republicans, and they won't vote for Republicans either. So there's a practical reason for us as Republicans to figure something out. But if people want to work, I think we ought to be able to normalize them and figure it out. But there are parts of immigration reform we already agreed to. If you've got a PhD or a master's and you're from another country, we staple a green card to your diploma. We want you to stay. If you're an entrepreneur, we should want you to stay. If you've got $50,000, $100,000, you want to start a business, by all means, we should want you here. And we should make it easy for you to stay. Republicans and Democrats agree to this, but we can't get them passed. Why? And it's not all the president's fault. There's some on our side, but the president has already announced he will not pass any immigration reform unless it's comprehensive immigration reform. And if you say that for everything, if everything has to be overall reform, we'll never pass anything. But I think if you broke a bunch of big issues up into 20 small issues, I think we could pass 20 bills in the next 2 weeks. I think people would all of a sudden say, you're working together and you're doing something. But to me, it means you have to break up the things into smaller pieces. The one thing I would say to try to end on a positive note, because I see a lot of glum faces out there, I don't think we're going over the cliff. I think there'll be some kind of deal made. There's always some kind of deal made, and both sides see the repercussions of not having a deal. So I think the cliff is averted either by December 31st or within a few weeks, in the sense that I don't think the taxes will go up on 98% of the people. I think they will raise taxes on the top 2%. Still think it's a bad idea, and as a Republican, I'll continue to say so, because I don't want to be the party that's raising them taxes a little bit or just a little bit less bad than Obama. I want to be a different party, and we either grow or we sink based on what we stand for. But I think it will be fixed in a way. Sequester part, I don't think will be, and I think they'll come back in the next couple of months. I think Republicans are inconsistent on the sequester. Republicans often have been opponents of John Maynard Keynes. He's the guy that says just borrow money and spend it, and you can, print your way into prosperity. Republicans have always said it's a bad idea, but then you got Republicans running around the country saying unless it's military spending. So if you have military jobs and we're making something for the military, all of a sudden a government job is fine, and it creates 3 jobs for every 1 job if we get government jobs. Well, not if the money's being borrowed. A military job's the same as another. And we do have to have certain military weapons for defense, but we should base what we build for defense, what missiles we have and what technology, on what we need to defend the country, not on taking a Keynesian argument that we have always objected to the Democrats and then adopting it for our own and saying military spending will be a jobs program. I think once we get through these problems, I think the one overriding thing that we should always remember in our country is the amazing resilience of capitalism, the amazing resilience and prosperity that we've created through the years, and still what potential there is. There's a lot of capital in this room. There's a lot of good things happening. And it happens even despite the bad things that your government does to you. We should try to minimize how bad our government is and how much it gets in the way, but realize that our system is an amazing system. We won the Cold War because the engine of capitalism defeated the engine of socialism. It is true. Let's don't give up on our system, but let's remain steadfast in what we believe in and the principles that made our country great. And I think if we do, we will thrive again. Thank you.